and it's in Truth Rising. 3 years ago, was questioned by We Are Change in New York. He'd written a letter to Ahmadinejad. They had posted it in the Huffington Post, and he said, look, our government staged the Gulf of Tonkin. It staged the Maine. It has staged other events. Don't think that our government won't stage something to invade you. You better do as you're told. I mean, he came right out and said, we staged terror attacks. And We Are Change talked to him, and he basically admitted it on video. See, when the globalists speak, they're very intelligent and very sophisticated. There's multi-messages. To their own people, there's a message. To those that are awake, there's a message. And to the dumbed-down mass, there's another message. And so when Bill Clinton gives speeches and goes on Wolf Blitzer and says twice, I hope there doesn't have to be a major terror attack in America to make people stop criticizing the government. And he says, your criticism of government is going to cause this. That's the frame-up. They're openly framing us ahead of time. They're getting ready. And if mainline talk show hosts like Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck will come out and tell the truth, we can turn the tide against this. Limbaugh is starting to get completely into the water. Michael Savage is up to his neck telling the truth now. Openly saying Obama's going to stage massive terror attacks. Limbaugh is saying, looks like they're going to stage something, we don't know what. And then he ties it into the racist provocateurs, but doesn't go all the way. Hannity and Beck, to my knowledge, you can call me and tell me if they have been saying it, but I haven't heard it. And I would hear about it if they did, generally. They haven't. Okay? Yes, they work for the establishment, but there's different fissures in the establishment. There's a lot of people who are wealthy, who see themselves as right-wing, who don't mind if the government stages a terror attack to blame it on Muslims to invade the Middle East. But they are starting to realize that they're going to be targeted in this new world order, and they can openly see the moves towards shutting down their free speech and their little kingdoms, and so they're starting to tell the truth. And if we can get the listeners of this very important radio show, because our listeners are the most active out there, if you can call into talk radio, local, national, syndicated, foreign, if you can post on your blogs, if you can get news articles out, if you can ring the alarm bell and sound the alarm, blow the trumpet now. I mean, I've been telling you this for several years. They're building towards it. I could see the preparation. Now, in the last year, it's been fever pitch, and it's just getting wilder and wilder and coming to a head. Where are we? April 19th. Now they're going to reintroduce McVeigh, reintroduce the domestic terrorists, and it could happen any time in the next few weeks. They may wait a few months. I mean, I think this is the crescendo right now of this orchestra piece, but it may get even higher. I don't know, but this is about as big a crescendo as I have ever seen. They're pulling out all of the stops, and you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind and have no historical understanding to not see how much danger we're in as a society. Now, listen. There are two articles by Kurt Nimmo and Paul Watson that are absolutely vital. It is vital that both of these get out to everyone you know. Number one, this just went out in the last 15 minutes at prisonplanet.com. Prisonplanet.com right now. Establishment exploits OKC bombing victims to push extremist threat propaganda. And this goes through the whole history of government-sponsored terror and how they're setting it up in the demonization program. You read this one article, you send this to somebody, and they read this 5-page article full of links with all the proof, they will have a clear understanding. Another article by Kurt Nimmo that came out Saturday. False flag prelude. Clinton launches demonization campaign on OK City bombing anniversary. I'm going to read it again. False flag prelude. Clinton launches demonization campaign on OK City bombing anniversary. This is a maximum red alert. Maximum red alert. Maximum red alert. Maximum red alert. Mayday. Mayday, mayday. There is absolutely no doubt that they have their finger on the trigger of multiple false flags, including atomic weapons in the West. They need to take over the society. They're moving on every front. They're not pulling punches. This is a full-on globalist offensive against free humanity, and they are going to fail if they don't stage a terror attack. I'm telling you, they are launching the operation. We will be right back. Stay with us. They are coming after our republic. They are making their move. They are prepping the public for massive terror attacks in the United States. Atomic, nuclear, thermonuclear. They are saying domestic groups are going to kill the police and the military while quietly demonizing police and military to the feds. This is a setup, and I hope the police and military out there are not weak-minded. How many times did I tell you over the last 8.5 years since 9/11 that the entire grid of Homeland Security was being developed for the American people to suppress us? And then Fox News and others began to introduce white Al-Qaeda, CNN, MSNBC, that, oh, yes, there's all these American people, militia groups, they're working with Al-Qaeda. Not only is Al-Qaeda fake, but saying militias are working with them is even more asinine. But this is the move. And what did I say back in 1996, 97, 98? What did I put in my first film about Oklahoma City? We know the federal government brought, under Bush, 3,000, 2,000 plus under Clinton, 5,000 plus Iraqi Republican Guard who'd been trained by the CIA in the 80s when Saddam was our ally. After the Gulf War, they brought them in, and they have been involved intimately in Oklahoma City and other events. That's in the LA Times. The FBI's reported that the first few days. I've interviewed the local police. I've interviewed the local reporters. There's video. They were staking them out the week before it happened. They were with McVeigh. But they didn't go with that story. They like to have different stories. They were seriously thinking about saying Muslim extremists working with the American people. So they've been fashioning this idea and preparing it as a story, as an excuse to turn the military and police loose against anyone criticizing government. And now you've seen them do it. Now you've seen them move this from the back burner to the front burner, and they've got the flame up on high. Separately, domestic terrorist as big a threat as Al-Qaeda, says FBI head Robert Mueller. 15 years after the Oklahoma City bombing, the specter of domestic terrorism has returned. Really? To haunt the Obama administration. Oh, but it's going to help them. Their approval rating will go up if there's a big attack. Clinton told USA Today on Air Force One in '96 that he got his reelection because of the bombing. So 15 years after the Oklahoma City bombing, the specter of domestic terrorism has returned to haunt the Obama administration, with a warning from the FBI that homegrown and lone wolf extremists now represent as serious a threat as Al-Qaeda and its affiliates. So now you are Al-Qaeda, America. The American people, you are now Al-Qaeda. Now what they've been teaching the cops for 8 years secretly is out in the open because they're getting ready to go operational with this demonization program. The warning from the FBI director, Robert Mueller, came as the former President Clinton drew parallels between Oklahoma City tragedy and a recent upsurge in anti-government rhetoric. You see, it's our fault. We're not just racist, folks. We're terrorists. While American television audiences heard Tim McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, describe the absolute rage that drove him to plan an attack that killed 168 men, women, and children, these supposed audio tapes. Then we've got all these separate affidavits from McVeigh and Terry Nichols saying they were U.S. government agents, and McVeigh's quote, "It's going to come out the U.S. government did this." Oh, they don't want you to read that. An FBI spokesman told the Times yesterday that Mr. Mueller was referring to right-wing extremist groups and anti-government militias as well as American Islamicists in his testimony to the Senate committee that must approve an $8.3 billion budget for the FBI. Last month, federal agents arrested 9 members of the Christian militia based in Michigan. I called that out in August of last year as they were going to set them up, calling itself the Hatari, and now it's come out. They had an audio tape saying, yeah, we may have to fight the government someday. It's out of control. And again, they bust them to create this cutout of, oh, look, they're terrorists. See, gun owners. They have been charged with plotting to murder local police, with a stash of guns, knives, and grenades. And see, that whole story is, again, meant to scare cops, get them against the American people. Since the passage of President Obama's health reforms, the FBI has also made the arrest in Seattle and San Francisco after death threats were sent to Democratic senators. And see, they use that, probably real threats by idiots, to, again, create this backdrop of, oh my gosh, the terrorists are about to strike. We've met the terrorists, and it's the American people. And they go on to say, expressing dissatisfaction with the government creates terrorism. You don't criticize anything. You sit down and you shut up and you let Goldman Sachs take your pension fund. And they're going to have this fake investigation, this civil investigation.